The real reason your body ages after 50 years old, and it is not what most people think. Scientists tracked roughly 120,000 people over about 8 years in a major cohort study published in JAMA Network Open. And when they were done, there was one single measurement that predicted who would die earliest: more than smoking, more than diabetes, more than heart disease. And no, it was not your cholesterol, it was not your weight, it was not your blood pressure, it was not your genetics. So when we are looking at aging, we are looking at the rate at which your body is breaking down at the cellular level. And the question is, what measurement gives you the best window into that rate? And that measurement is VO2 max. Ignore the name for a second. Just realize VO2 max is the measurement of how much fuel and oxygen move through the energy factory inside your cells, the mitochondria, to actually make energy for you to live. It is essentially your peak aerobic horsepower, the maximum amount of oxygen your body can pull from the air, deliver to your working muscles, and use to generate energy in a single minute of all-out effort. When that number is high, your engine is large. When it is low, your engine is small, and every system downstream pays the price. Here is the scenario I see over and over again. You cleaned up your diet, you got rid of the sugar, you are taking fish oil, you added collagen, you are taking a handful of other supplements, maybe you are even doing intermittent fasting, yet in the morning when you get out of bed, you do not jump out of bed anymore, you ease out slowly. And let us say you go work out, and you try to run up a hill, and you just cannot quite make it to the top. Or maybe it takes you longer to recover from workouts that used to feel easy. Most people have never heard of what is actually driving that, and they end up focusing on the wrong things. They start buying expensive supplements to extend their life, which a lot of the time turns into very expensive urine. One thing keeps popping out over and over and over in the research, and at the very center of it is VO2 max, not cholesterol, not calorie restriction, not any single micronutrient you can buy in a bottle. What is happening at the cellular level is this. Even though fuel is present in your bloodstream, it does not get pulled into the mitochondria efficiently, so you are usually running on fumes even when you have just eaten. Your cells are starving in the middle of plenty. If you have weak mitochondria, inefficient mitochondria, you are going to feel tired, you are going to age faster, you are going to have more chronic problems, and you are not going to live as long as you could. So in reality, a lot of chronic diseases are mostly about not being able to get enough usable fuel into the cell. And when I talk about fuel, I am also talking about oxygen, because it is kind of like a carburetor in a car. You need a certain amount of oxygen mixed with the fuel to make the engine actually run. You cannot run an engine on gasoline alone with no oxygen. So oxygen matters enormously, and VO2 max measures exactly how well your body is delivering that oxygen where it needs to go, all the way down to the mitochondrial membrane. I did my own test on a treadmill a few years ago. You walk in, they put a mask on your face, you slowly go up in speed and incline until you hit your maximum, and then the equipment calculates your VO2 max, which correlates strongly with where your biological fitness sits. And so if you have a high VO2 max, you have a high fitness reserve, which is exactly what you want. You want to have this extra cushion so when life throws stress at you, whether it is illness, surgery, an infection, a hard workout, a bad night of sleep, you can tolerate it without breaking down. You do not want to be living on the edge, where one more stressor pushes you over. Let me show you something here. I want you to imagine a risk of dying scale, drawn from the same body of research that has been replicated in cohort after cohort for the last decade. Heart disease increases your risk of dying by about 1.3 times. High blood pressure increases your risk by about 1.4 times. Type 2 diabetes increases it by about 1.4 times. Smoking increases it by about 1.4 times. Now look at this number. Being unfit, having a low VO2 max, is associated with about a 5x risk of dying in the long term. All of those other risk factors that so many people focus so much energy on trying to lower, yet being out of shape outweighs every single one of them. This was in the human study I mentioned earlier, involving over 120,000 people followed for years. Low cardiorespiratory fitness, that is low VO2 max, was the single biggest threat, by a long way, more than smoking, more than diabetes, more than heart disease, more than high blood pressure on its own. And the same pattern shows up across multiple independent cohorts, including work published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, where midlife cardiorespiratory fitness predicted mortality decades later even after adjusting for the usual suspects. I just have to pause here for a moment and address the cholesterol conversation, because so many people are afraid of having higher cholesterol as they get older. A Swedish cohort study of adults 60 years and older actually found that higher total cholesterol was tied to a lower risk of all-cause mortality, about a 30% lower risk of dying, not higher risk. And the Chinese Longitudinal Healthy Longevity Survey found that those with the highest LDL cholesterol in their sample had about a 23% lower risk of all-cause mortality compared to those with the lowest LDL. A separate analysis pooling data across multiple cohorts found that among people over 60, high LDL was associated with lower mortality in the vast majority of included studies, and in no study did high LDL predict higher mortality once you adjusted for the usual confounders. Now, I am not telling you to get off any medication you are on. That is a conversation between you and your doctor. I am just sharing data that shows how important cholesterol actually is, especially as we get older. Your body makes cholesterol for a reason. We make it for our cellular membranes. We make it to build our hormones. We make it to support brain function. And once you are past a certain age, the data tells a very different story than the story we were told in our 30s and 40s. Now let me also tell you what I have been personally working on, because I am excited to share two products that I just came out with. I have been working on a metabolic taco seasoning and a live fire fajita and grill rub. The reason I came up with these in the first place is that when I would go to the grocery store and read the labels on the seasonings already on the shelf, they were loaded with hidden fillers, maltodextrin, starches, monosodium glutamate, and other ingredients that genuinely alter your taste buds over time and keep you wanting more of the same junk. So I made my own version. The metabolic taco seasoning uses nutritional yeast and real spices. It is delicious. Everyone who has tried it has come back and told me they put it on everything. If you are like me and you like tacos, I tend to put my tacos in keto bread or even a lettuce wrap, and this seasoning absolutely sings in that setup. And then there is the live fire fajita and grill rub. The flavor is tangy garlic layered with citrus and just enough chili heat to make it interesting without burning you out. It is delicious. 2 net carbs per serving, virtually almost zero. This is a massive upgrade for your chicken, your steak, your grilled vegetables. Each pouch comes with 4 pre-portioned packets, and each packet is sized perfectly for 1 pound of meat or 1 pound of vegetables. Check the link below, and please give me your honest feedback, because that is how I know whether to keep a product moving forward. Back to the science. Think about how many people are terrified of their cholesterol numbers and spend enormous energy trying to push those numbers lower and lower and lower in the hope that they will live longer. But that is not what the research is showing after the age of 50. Cholesterol is one piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle. There are other things that contribute just as much, like having lower fasting insulin because you are not snacking all day, keeping chronic inflammation lower, keeping chronic stress lower, eating more nutrient-dense real food. But out of all of these things, what influences the mitochondria by far the most is how fit you are. Because if you do not have a good machine to turn food, even the cleanest food or the most expensive supplements, into usable energy and body tissue, then you really have not achieved the goal. You can take the cleanest fuel in the world, but if your mitochondria cannot burn it, that fuel just sits there, raising your blood sugar, raising your triglycerides, raising your inflammation, and quietly accelerating the very aging you were trying to slow down. Now I know some of you are watching this and you are going to say, well, age is really about genetics. That is actually not true. Researchers have done studies on identical twins, same DNA, same birthday, who drifted 10 to 15 years apart on their biological aging clocks at the same chronological age, same genes, almost same lives, different aging speeds. So yes, genetics can make you more vulnerable to certain problems, but it is really the epigenetics, which is the daily lifestyle layer on top of the DNA, that pulls the trigger and sets the actual pace of your aging. The genome loads the gun, the lifestyle pulls the trigger. That is the part almost no one talks about after they quote your family history back to you. I am 61 years old as I am filming this. I feel like I am 21. And what I am about to walk you through is the exact routine I apply to my own body to keep my biological age this far below my chronological age. And if you stick with me, I am going to give you a free download at the end so you can start applying the same routine tomorrow morning. My biological age, measured on multiple platforms, ranges somewhere in the low 30s, and the biggest single contributor to that number, more than my diet, more than my sleep, more than my supplements, is my VO2 max. But before that, I want to knock out the last objection I think a lot of people will have, which is this: I do not have the energy to work out. Here is the truth: the energy you want comes after you start. You have to build the energy machine to be able to generate energy. You cannot wait for energy to show up before you start working out. It never works that way. The machine generates the energy. That is the entire point. I have watched people who could barely walk up a flight of stairs at 55 rebuild enough fitness over 12 months to play full-court basketball with their adult children at 56. I have watched people in their 60s climb stairs they could not climb 2 years earlier. The energy does not come first, the movement does, and the energy follows the movement. I have a free download that I want to give to you. This free download is my daily routine and my checklist. It is the exact routine I use every single day to feel like I am about 18 years old, even though I am 61, and I want to give it to you for free. There is a little link below. Click it, definitely download it, and let me know how the first week feels. The download is generic enough that you can start using it whether you are 50, 60, 70, or even older, and there are modifications I have built in for beginners, for people rebuilding from injury, and for people who have been inactive for a long time. Print it out, stick it on the fridge, and just follow it for 30 days before you judge whether anything is working. Now there is just one more thing I want to tell you before I show you exactly how to raise your VO2 max and slow your aging after 50. The top anti-aging supplements that I think are a waste of money. Let us start with resveratrol. As an anti-aging pill for slowing the actual rate of human aging, the human evidence is essentially dead at this point. Resveratrol in doses you can actually buy over the counter does not move the needle on longevity in any meaningful randomized human trial. Then you have NMN and NAD+ boosters. These are very fancy molecules, basically forms of vitamin B3 niacin, but there is still no large randomized control trial showing that they actually slow the aging process down in real people in a clinically meaningful way. Some early work is interesting, but that early work has not translated into the kind of evidence you would want before handing over a few $100s a month. Yet these NAD boosters cost $60, $70, even $100 a month. Incredible amount of money for something we cannot say with confidence is working. And then there are the sirtuin activators. One independently funded study, never independently replicated. You are tracing a downstream late marker and hoping it means you are living longer. I would not put my money there. Here is another one, spermidine. The mechanistic story is plausible, but no solid randomized human trial yet showing it extends healthy lifespan in people who are already eating real food. Then we have urolithin A. The mechanism is real, mitophagy support, cleanup of damaged mitochondria. But the actual effect size in published human trials has been tiny. Again, I would not put all my eggs in this basket. I would put them in the foundational lifestyle factors that have decades of evidence behind them. Here is the plan. Number 1. Regular long walks, for 30 to 60 minutes, 3 times a week at minimum. I personally do this 3 times a week. You want to walk at a pace where you could still hold a regular conversation with someone without being out of breath. This kind of exercise is called aerobic base building, and it builds more mitochondria, more capillaries, more efficient oxygen delivery. It really makes sense when you think about how our ancestors lived. They had to walk long distances every day. We do not get that movement anymore. So yes, you can go to the gym and lift every day, but we need a lot of motion, and the more of it the better, especially as we get past 50. Walking is the most underrated longevity tool on the planet, and almost everyone can do it starting today, regardless of weight, joint history, or current fitness. Number 2 is the thing that will increase your VO2 max the most per minute spent training. It is what is called a 4x4 interval protocol, sometimes called the Norwegian 4x4. Be aware, you should be cleared by your doctor before doing anything this intense, especially if you have any history of heart issues. The protocol is simple. Warm up for 10 to 15 minutes at an easy pace, then go as hard as you comfortably can for 4 minutes, on a treadmill, on a bike, on a rower, on a hill outside. It should feel like an 8 or 9 out of 10 effort, where you can still speak a few words but you do not really want to. Then bring the pace down for 3 minutes of active recovery, where your heart rate comes back to a moderate level. Then repeat, 4 intervals, 4 recoveries, that is it. When I first started, I could not even do 4 minutes at that effort. I could only do 2 minutes, so I did 2 minutes hard, 3 minutes easy, and built up slowly over weeks until I could hold 4. Once the 4 minutes is done, I rest for about 4 to 5 minutes until my heart rate is fully back down. Then I get back on the treadmill and do the exact same thing, then I rest again, and I cycle that 4 times total. I also run hill sprints on another day of the week, and that is pretty much the only hard running I do all week. The rest of the time is just long walks. The published research on this protocol is strong, and it works. I can tell you personally it built my VO2 max measurably over time, and the protocol has been studied specifically in older populations, where it produced meaningful gains in cardiorespiratory fitness within just a few months. Number 3 is build some muscle. Resistance training, weight training, super important. The more muscle you build, the more mitochondria you have, and the more storage capacity you have for glucose. Muscle is essentially a giant fuel tank that soaks up excess sugar from your blood after you eat, which takes enormous pressure off your pancreas and off your liver. You do not need a fancy gym. Body weight work at home, done consistently, gets the job done. Squats, push-ups, rows with household objects, gentle progressions week after week. The published research is clear on this point too. Adults over 50 who lift consistently preserve lean mass, keep their insulin sensitivity intact, and show biological age markers years younger than sedentary peers of the same chronological age. The last thing I want to recommend is intermittent fasting. Why? Because this aligns with what your body actually thrives on, which is eating periodically, not constantly, which gives your cells regular windows to run autophagy, the cleanup process that clears out damaged cell parts, including damaged mitochondria. There is a lot of solid research on this for longevity, and the practice is simple. I personally do 2 meals a day, no snacks, and I drink water, black coffee, and herbal tea between the meals. That is it. The hunger is not as bad as people think once you settle into the pattern. 2 meals a day also keeps insulin lower for longer, which by itself is aging protective. A lot of people ask me what supplements I recommend. Now of course I am biased toward my own line because I built it to my standards, but if you go to my website and look at my supplements page, you will find the ones I currently use and the ones I have reformulated away from after looking at the most recent data. I am not telling you to buy anything you do not want. I am telling you to evaluate every supplement you are currently taking against actual human longevity evidence, because a lot of what is sold as anti-aging is theater. In summary, the single most important thing you should focus on to extend the healthy years of your life after the age of 50 is your fitness, specifically your VO2 max, along with the muscle and the mitochondrial infrastructure that supports it. That is the lever that matters more than cholesterol, more than any single supplement, more than any single diet trend, because at the cellular level it changes how much usable energy your body can make from the food you are already eating. Now that you understand VO2 max and what drives the rate of aging after 50, the next most important thing to get the details on, especially if you are trying to live a long and energetic life, is the exact structure of a sane intermittent fasting routine that people actually stick to past 60. For details on that, that is the video you should watch next. It is right here. Here is the bottom line I want you to walk away with. Age is not a number on a calendar. It is the speed at which your mitochondria are failing, and that speed is something you can slow down dramatically at 50, 60, even 70, if you are willing to do the boring, unsexy work of building a real fitness base. The supplements will not do it. The diets will not do it alone. The morning miracle pills will not do it. Your VO2 max will do it. And your VO2 max is something you have direct control over starting the moment you take your next walk. So get out there, start with the walking, layer in the 4x4s when your doctor approves, build some muscle, eat in a window that works for your life, drop the supplements that do not have evidence, and watch what happens to your energy in 90 days. You will not believe the change, and your doctor will not believe the change in your labs. Thank you so much for watching, and I will